Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Connecticut Democracy Center, it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's conversation at noon, celebrating the holidays Connecticut style. This month, all of our programs here at the Democracy Center will be focused on some of the things that make our state so special during this time of year. Today, we'll be learning about holiday celebrations at two of Connecticut's museums. Anyone who works in museums knows the pressure about decorating for the holidays. Staff grapples with questions such as how to tie the holidays to your site's mission and how to keep celebrations vibrant from year to year. Today, we have two speakers who will discuss holiday plans at their museums, and they are currently open, so they are places you can take the family and go enjoy some holiday feeling. Please make sure, as you're watching today's program, to post your questions in the comments section, as we will have time towards the end of the program to share with our guests. I'd like to start by introducing the first of our speakers. It's always a real pleasure to have friends and colleagues join us for programs. And today we have David DJ Rao, who is joining us as one of our speakers. David has worked in museums in Michigan and New England for over 3 decades. He has been the Director of Education and Outreach at Florence Griswold Museum since 1998, as well as an adjunct professor at Connecticut College for the past 18 years. David holds a master's degree in the history of art and a certificate in museum practice from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. At the museum, David oversees and coordinates the ongoing education programs for visitors of all ages. Working closely with colleagues in the education and curatorial departments, he schedules lectures, workshops, demonstrations, classes, workshops, and film series that correspond to the current exhibitions and core story of the museum. He's also responsible for a really wonderful program called the Wee Fairy Village, the museum's most popular fall event, attracting thousands of visitors each October. Well connected to cultural leaders and across the state and region, he sits on the board of the Connecticut League of Historic Organizations and chairs their annual conference. It's my pleasure to welcome David and introduce him, and he'll speak first.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks everybody for having us today and for being interested in how museums tackle the challenge of decorating for the holidays. I would like us, I have some images to share with you today, and then I'll tell you the story of what we've done at the Florence Griswold Museum this year. So if I could have the PowerPoint brought up, that'd be great. And if you could start the slideshow from the start. So we call our celebration at the Florence Griswold Museum the Magic of Christmas. And so the Magic of Christmas of 2020 is a little bit different than we have done in the past. Last year, we actually took a little hiatus from our holiday decorating because we had a magnificent installation of insects in our historic house by the artist Jennifer Angus. And we, in the historic room, she had placed about 1,000 bugs, pinning them to the wall like wallpaper. And it was so remarkable that we decided to leave it through the holidays. I secretly called it Project Humbug, and we opted not to decorate for Christmas and just left that up. If you're at all interested in what that looked like, we have a digital virtual tour of the insects on our website, florencegriswoldmuseum.org. The Florence Griswold Museum is a 12-acre campus. There are several buildings, one of which is the Griswold House, which you can see in the photograph here. We also have a state-of-the-art contemporary gallery. But in the Griswold House, we like to decorate for Christmas, primarily because Florence Griswold, our namesake, was born on Christmas Day in the year 1850. The house was a sea captain's house until it kind of descended into the family to Florence when she was the sole survivor. And to make ends meet, she opened the house as a boarding house. And as luck would have it, some of the first boarders were artists from New York City who wanted to form an art colony. So they took over her whole house in the year 1900. And from then until Miss Florence's death in the 1930s, it was a thriving art colony that specialized in American Impressionist painting. The artists would gather, after a morning of painting en plein air on the side porch, and they would gather and talk about the art world and what they've accomplished and life in New York. They were actually called the Hot Air Club. Because of course it was hot in the house, and so they wanted to go outside to get some air, but they were also probably giving a lot of hot air in their highfalutin conversation. So this year we decided to kind of use a little historical fiction and imagine that the artists were at the Hot Air Club sweating one summer, dreaming of a chilly New York, and the conversation turned to the holiday windows in New York City, and they get the idea that they're going to do their own competition, not windows, but they're going to decorate Miss Florence's mantles for Christmas and make it into a competition. So a little friendly holiday competition between the artists. And this was our way of bringing out new objects from both the collection, the painting collection, and other objects from friends and family. So when you enter the Griswold house, you have the story of this little friendly holiday competition, and you can see that Miss Florence is given the task of awarding the prizes on her birthday, Christmas Day. And so she's going to have a first, second, and third place winner. But of course, Miss Florence loves all of her artists, and so she can't do it alone. And so she's asked all of her holiday visitors, including the museum visitors, to vote for their favorite. And then she'll use those tallies to award those. And so we'll have the awards physically moved from this intro room to the actual mantles for the last week of the installation. So in the artist's bedroom, this is a room in the house where the artist would have rented, and it would have been their home away from home for, a week, 2 weeks, a month, however long they were staying at the boarding house. And we decided to install these beautiful cow paintings by Edward Volkert, one over the mantle and one on the easel that's reflected in the mirror. And we're calling this installation, or this competitive entry, Festivities on the Farm. And we really used, the idea was that the artists went back to their studio, or they went out to one of Miss Florence's outbuildings, and they just gathered things, non-traditional things that you would normally not be seeing in holiday decorations, but when used to decorate, become festive in a different way. And so taking our cues from the farm implements, or the cows on the farm, we have some milk containers, we have butter pats, we have cow-related things, dairy-related things, horseshoes. And then we have things from the museum's collection, the ox cart at the bottom, and some of the, the yolks that you'll see in the different images. Not all things are collection items. We don't have, we have a kind of an art-based collection. So we invited friends and family to help us by donating some of their objects. And Joan Green from Wounded Eagle Farm in Canterbury has a great collection of dairy materials. She works at the museum and allowed us to use a lot of her objects for this installation. This is just another view, but you can see how the other painting is actually reflected in a large pier mirror. So where the photograph is taken is the view that the visitors get. So they get to see both paintings and this wonderful, marvelous mantle decorated with very non-traditional objects. And there's just a nice close-up of the painting and some of those butter pats. The center hall of the Griswold house connects the rooms where the competition mantles are. But because Florence's father was a sea captain, we decided that we would decorate the main doorway with a kind of a welcome home, Captain Griswold, and kind of honor his time where he was a packet boat sailing between New York and London for his career. And so it's always nice to have a flashback, even though we focus on the years of the art colony. The house does have a longer, history, and so the hallway kind of does a little nod to his time at sea. And we've incorporated for the first time our pineapples, as our symbol of hospitality. And each Christmas, we always bring out objects from the collection that are wintry. And so this red velvet cape always comes out, which people just love. And then we also have a pair of ice skates and just a few other, wintertime or Christmas themed things from the collection. In the parlor, we decided not to focus on just one artist, but a kind of an artistic family. And we call this the Hoffman Family Celebration. Beatrice Hoffman made this tapestry with an underwater theme. Harry Hoffman, who is the artist of the colony, was also an athlete, and he posed for this sculpture of the sprinter. Beatrice also designed that toll tray. And when the family found out that we were doing this, they said, that, oh, we have a stuffed animal tramp from Disney's Lady and the Tramp that we'd love you to borrow. And so they shipped that up. So we have things in the parlor from all members of the family. But the mantle really became a tour de force of this kind of underwater theme. We took the colors of things in the tapestry and some of the shapes and patterns, and we decorated the mantle to echo those. The family enjoyed throwing mineral salts in their fireplace to make the flames different colors. And so, although this is a still photograph, if you visit the museum, the lights in the fireplace actually slowly twinkle and blend from one color to another, kind of simulating that kind of magical thing that the family remembers as being a holiday highlight. But a detail, we had a lot of fun using real coral, real barnacles, and then a lot of artificial things. We're kind of mindful of, how important coral is. And so whenever possible, we used artificial versions. But we had a lot of these things in our decorating collection already. And so we're really reusing and repurposing, but it kind of turned out, visually pretty splendid. And then, of course, we decorated with a traditional, Victorian tree in the corner, hung with crocheted ornaments, cornucopias, and toys. And Miss Florence was fond of having cats in her house at all times. And so we always like to bring out the kitty cats during the holiday season. And so here's one tangled up in the ribbon, and the other one is being a little mischievous. Harry Hoffman, he was very artistic, but he was also very athletic. And so underneath the tree are his golf clubs, his golf balls, and the kitty cat is playing with his golf tees. And some of the other elements are things borrowed just to kind of set the historic athletic mood. And then just a few other details of things out in the parlor, bits of green, not going too, we know that Miss Florence, she wasn't wealthy. And so her Christmases would have been homespun and meager when the artists aren't busy decorating for her. And then the third in the competition is Miss Florence's bedroom. And we're calling this one a wacky wash day holiday. We took one of our paintings that shows an outbuilding at the museum. If you know the museum, you can look and you see the chimneys of the Griswold House at the top upper right of the painting. So this shed that was behind has some washing implements you can strewn on the outside. And so we decided to take that as our cue, and we decorated with things from the collection again, but also we borrowed things from Leslie Evans at the Avery Kopp Historic House Museum in Groton, and decorated the mantle with, sock drying forms, clothespins, and of other kind of washing paraphernalia. We have some historic, soap packets, as well as some garland that we thought looked a lot like bubbles. So we thought they'd be perfect for a wash day holiday. A few things from the collection, a rug clip and an iron. Whenever possible, we wanted to use things from the collection that don't normally get seen. But to flesh that out, we use things from family and friends. There's another one of these sassy kitties playing with the hydrangea. But we do have a toy collection. And so the curators went through that and found laundry-related toys. And we have this little vignette. Sorry, Icarus, quiet. This little vignette set up on Miss Florence's table. Kind of a nice thing that echoes the arrangement in front of the fireplace. And then lastly, in the Griswold dining room, this is not part of the competition, but we just received this beautiful palette from one of the historic artists. In fact, it's going to be entered into the collection early next week. And we just thought it made a wonderful setting in front of the, instead of a turkey, instead of a turkey in front of the table, we have this giant palette filling up that beautiful space in the middle. And just a few details. I have somebody coming to get the dog, so I apologize. and then just a little tree here next to the fireplace. And I just love the way the light's reflected in the window. It almost looks like there's an Easter egg hunt happening outside. So in this instance, Christmas meets Easter. And just a few more shots of that historic dining room. And so the visitors will be voting, and we'll be moving those palettes those awards to those other places. That's really what's really new for us this year, and we're very excited about it. But we did continue some of our other traditions, and I just want to quickly show you some of the things that we offer during the holiday season at the Florence Griswold Museum. We have a practice of creating fantasy trees in 3 locations, one down in our orientation gallery, one in our tonalist gallery, and one in our impressionist gallery. And this year, we invited members of the staff to help us out. This first one, A Natural Christmas, was actually done by somebody actually not on staff, but a local shopkeeper, artist, lifestyle guru, Candace Hunsinger. She's opened up a store called Ivory and Iron in Essex, and I invited her to kind of create a tree using her signature colors, which are ivory and iron. And she has this tree covered with feathers and minerals and bones, a very natural and unusual but beautiful tree. Each year we challenge we're challenged by coming up with something new and different. And of course, Candace helped us hit it out of the park. And then members from our marketing department, Tammy Flynn and Emily Clark, did this couturiers tree where they taken a dress form and created this beautiful, lush Christmas tree or Christmas tree-esque installation. It's a very rich installation. They have the ribbons and fabrics all in front of the mantelpiece, as well as this forest of fabric trees. It's really a tour de force, and people tend to gasp when they see it, when they walk into the gallery. Then we had the members of the development department, Matt Streckel, Didi Filiatro, and Nathaniel Green do a tree in the other, and they took on the task of making silhouettes of the entire staff and framing those. And so this tree is silhouettes of the season, and all of the staff members that we currently have on. There's about 22 of us, full-time, part-time, and really dedicated volunteers. And so they are all on this tree. And then along Miss Florence's mantle are silhouettes of her cats. Again, we can never forget Miss Florence's fondness for the felines. And then the big thing that we do each year is called palette trees. This is our 17th year where we invite artists to paint or sculpt or draw on a blank palette that we send them. And then they are to decorate that palette and return it to the museum as a gift from Miss Florence. And we put them on the palette trees. We don't sell them. We put them in the collection vault each year, and we bring them out again like family heirlooms. And this year we added 12 new palettes to the collection, and so we have a total of 224 palettes. We published a book last year that really showcases them, but we have no end in sight. We're going to keep collecting these beautiful treasures for the museum. And again, these trees go in our art gallery, where we have a current show called Expanding Horizons, the Hartford Steam Boiler Celebration Show. And these are just kind of perfectly situated in the middle. You see the trees, and then you can see the exhibition, or you come to see the exhibition, and then you can see the trees. And each year we design the 4 trees differently, using different decorations and different toppings. And then this year with the 12 new trees, the new palettes are so, they're so varied, from things that are completely abstract, some things are trompe l'oeil, some things are religious, and some things are, from the artist's, something that the artist has done before, and they're, redoing it in the palette shape for us. And then last but not least, in our education center, we had this wonderful loan of this kind of sleigh. So we thought, well, we couldn't have Santa on site this year because of COVID, but maybe we would have his sleigh so that people will at least get the spirit of giving that's so important this time of year at the museum. Thank you.
Thank you, David. It's wonderful to learn about the Florence Griswold's holiday celebrations. And can you tell us, how do we come and take part in the holidays at Florence Griswold?
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for asking me that question. Because of COVID, we have some pretty strict rules regarding, how visitors come. We do ask you to make reservations 24 hours in advance via our website. It's pretty easy, just to follow along and you'll pick your time slot. But you'll also know that when you visit, there will be a limited number of other people there, so it's very safe. And because we have the historic house, the galleries, and the grounds, people can find their own space. So, just go to the Florence Griswold Museum.org and click on tickets. We also have holiday teas, again, that have been done to make them very safe. Those are, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they include admissions to the art gallery. And all the information is on the website.
Oh, great. And what are your museum hours?
Thank you, Rebecca. We are open every day but Monday, so Tuesday through Sundays from 10 until 4.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know we'll have more questions for you from the audience members, and if you are watching, please make sure to put your questions in the comments, and we'll ask both of our speakers at the end of our program. It's now my pleasure to introduce a colleague from the HIll-stead Museum, Melanie Bourbeau, who is the curator at HIll-stead Museum, where she's worked since 1998. In addition to overseeing all aspects of collections care, stewardship, and exhibition, she also manages the museum's extensive archives. Her background includes a Bachelor of Science in Art Education and an Associate in Applied Science degree in Interior Design, both from schools in Illinois, where she grew up and lived until moving to Connecticut in 1996. Melanie received her master's in American Studies from Trinity College, which is in Hartford, Connecticut, and has worked at numerous museums in various capacities in Greater Hartford in the early and mid 2000s, including the Mark Twain House and Museum, the Noah Webster House, and the Austin House, a house museum operated by the Wadsworth Atheneum Museum of Art. It's my pleasure to welcome Melanie.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. It's my pleasure to be a part of your program today. So if we could have the first slide from the PowerPoint. So I will give a little background about HIll-stead and about the Pope and Riddle families who lived here, while the participants can gaze at what has been for a long time one of our signature decorations, our antiquarian bust of Marcus Aurelius in all his holiday finery. So for those of you who may not know HIll-stead or who have not been here for a long time, it is a historic house museum on an estate that was originally about 250 acres, and we have 150 acres today. The Pope family came to Farmington after having lived extensively for many years in Ohio, in Cleveland. Alfred Pope was an iron industrialist who eventually caught the art collecting bug, and HIll-stead is now a showplace for his French Impressionist art collection and all of the many, many other beautiful and lovely decorative arts and furniture items that he bought, including Marcus and the Eastern European shaving stand that so perfectly serves as a pedestal for him. Why don't we go to the next slide? Thank you. So HIll-stead, and there you can see on the right, is one of the signature artworks in the collection, Claude Monet's Grain Stacks in Bright Sunlight, painted in 1890. Paired up with a Christmas tree, and the detail shot shows that this tree is a riff on that painting with the pastel color palette, wheat sheaves, Scandinavian wheat ornaments, a Scandinavian wheat topper, and the twinkly lights. So what's important to remember is that the Pope family were actually Quakers. Alfred Pope's, the Pope line in particular, were Quakers. So they, in fact, really did not decorate for Christmas. But visitors want Christmas, and they want Christmas in a big way. So for years and years and years, back as far as I can even remember, or as long as I've been here, and certainly many, many years before that, the museum has always decorated in what visitors want to see, a lush, festive, warm, fun holiday environment while we tell the story of the Pope family during what in our pre-COVID days were, an hour-long house tour. So visitors would get a very comprehensive understanding of the family and yet be able to gaze at all the lovely holiday decorations and the Christmas tree. Several years ago, we started adding in more and more Christmas trees just for the fun of it and to decorate them in different ways. And for many years, we did what we called an American collector's Christmas, where, just as David explained, we would get out things from storage that, we didn't always have an opportunity to show and get them out. But after having done that for at least 10, maybe 15 years, we were ready for a change. And so we came up with the idea of thematic Christmas trees based on either the paintings or different aspects about the collection. So this is one of the Christmas trees that is a direct riff on the collection. If you go to the next slide, here is an interpretation of Edgar Degas' Dancers in Pink. And there you can see in the background, Dancers in Pink, as it hangs next to Edward Manet's The Guitar Player. So, last year was the first year that we did this tree, and it was something that I'd wanted to do for quite some time. And I'd come up with the idea, thought about, well, I need to, get some pink tulle, obviously, to mimic the tutus. And since the dancers, and I don't know how well you can see in the painting, but the dancers are wearing a black choker around their necks. One of them has a pearl earring that practically glistens and is very much an element of the artwork that draws visitors right in. And then they have flowers in their hair. And so as I was looking around, the craft shops, buying different colors of pink tulle and black ribbon and putting an intern to work, over the summer to make this garland, and buying flower garlands, and then had to have a pearl garland and ordered that, and, different pink globe ornaments. I had a feeling it was probably going to turn out okay, but I wasn't really sure. And so after, setting one of my volunteer groups together last year to put this together, I was just amazed at how well it turned out. So it really came together quite well. And that brings up the point that in the past, before the pandemic, I have had anywhere from 8, 10, sometimes as many as 15 of our volunteers in the museum with me for the better part of a day decorating. And so with this year, I figured they aren't going to want to come, and I wasn't so eager to have a house full myself. So I had to think about how to still decorate and be festive, get out the decorations that were going to make the most impact, because as we've had to reconsider our own tours, the amount of time that we feel safe allowing visitors of mixed groups to be in the museum together has been greatly reduced. So we're down to about a 30-minute tour in the house with a substantial orientation, if the weather allows, outdoors or in a safe space if the weather's a little bit too cool or inclement. Visitors still see all the rooms, but with limited time being indoors, it was clear to me they weren't going to have the time to absorb the story that we were sharing, view the artwork, and still absorb the Christmas decorations. So actually, if you could go back to the first slide, thanks, for a moment. Well, the second, not the intro slide, that one. Great, thank you. What you'll see is that we have ballet costumes on view this year. And this came about through really just one of those moments of serendipity that falls into your lap just at the time when you most need it. Ballet Theater Company, which is based in West Hartford, was looking for ways to show the Nutcracker when they are unable to have live Nutcracker performances. So they have been partnering up with a number of Greater Hartford arts organizations, not just at holiday time, but through the fall, and then even continuing beyond holiday time into, the early winter late winter and possibly even into early spring. I'm not entirely sure how long they're going to try this new formula, but we were just super lucky to have been chosen for the December time slot. So it fell in line perfectly with having something different and special on view with our Christmas trees during the holiday season. So here you can see, and paired up perfectly in terms of the pastel color, are two of the pale blue Merleton dancers from that iconic Christmas production, The Nutcracker. So we can go forward now and then forward one more. So here we have another ballet costume. And again, the color palette with the pastel pinks just paired up perfectly with another of our iconic Claude Monet grain stack paintings, grain stacks and white frost effect. So this, you can see from the caption, is Sleeping Beauty's Princess Aurora. So in addition to the Nutcracker, we have costumes from Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, and Don Quixote throughout the museum. We have 22 costumes on both the first and second floors. There are 18 costumes on the first floor and 6 costumes up on the second floor throughout the rooms. And it was just, when we were approached about this, I thought this is just the absolute perfect thing to add a little extra oomph and festiveness to the museum that allows me to actually, in contrast to David and his, amazing rich mantles at Flo Gris, to pare things back a little bit at Hill-stead so that I could do this on my own with just a couple of helpers rather than my usual 10 to 15. It still took me 3 days to get the museum up and running. So it was still a lot of work, but doing it more or less on my own, it was a lot harder this year. So why don't we go forward to the next slide? So here we have in the library, and this is an example of how when we went to our thematic tree concept a few years ago, we figured the library was rich with literature and artists, and so we decked it out with, and these are actually ornaments that anybody can source themselves on the internet, those darling cute little felt ornaments of authors and artists and literary characters. And so this one, it has some artist characters like Claude Monet and Van Gogh, I believe, even though Van Gogh's not a part of our collection. He was just too cute to pass up with his little sunflower boutonniere. But we have a lot of literary characters, such as, Shakespearean characters, Jane Austen characters. There are tiny little book ornaments, and then filled out with like felt fleur-de-lis, little gold balls, gold bead garland. So it's a very literary themed tree that just fits perfectly in the library. If you go to the next slide, also in the library, this is one of the most dramatic costumes in the exhibition, and you can see that this is the evil witch Caraboss from Sleeping Beauty, and the photograph, I can tell you, does not do justice to her raven costume that is just an amazing, richly designed, multi-layered black on black lace around to the back of the costume. And this is one of the few costumes where visitors can actually view it in the round by taking out a lot of the center furniture group there in front of Whistler's The Blue Wave Barrettes. It gave us an opportunity to really show this costume to its absolute best advantage. And at the back of the costume, which I don't have an image of, but this is an enticement to come and view it in person, the texture and detail of the raven is done with neoprene. So that fabric that is used in wetsuits, the costume designers really put to full advantage all of their creative skills to make this costume. A part of our exhibition this year is that there is some audio tour available on our website and a program booklet so that you can listen to descriptions from the costume designers for Ballet Theater Company and how they created the costumes that you're seeing, and read some of the descriptions about how they went about making them, sourcing the laces and the fabrics, and in particular, the neoprene for this one. So let's go on to the next slide. So in another room of the house, this is our game-themed tree. And games were a really important part of the Pope and Riddle family's life here at HIll-stead. Alfred Pope was a great game lover, and he had a billiards room, kind of the requisite billiards room in a mansion house up on the 3rd floor. He loved a good baseball game when he could break away from business and, get out of the office and go to the game. But Theodate's husband was a bridge player, and so what we have still in our collection, in our game cupboard, are multiple decks of cards in fitted card cases, card boxes. And so the volunteers that we worked with several years ago to put all these theme trees together, they came up with this idea of a game tree and used a deck of antique playing cards to make a playing card garland. They found some little, tiny little game pieces. And then really what makes this tree are the gifts that are wrapped with harlequin patterned ribbon that just fit right in with that, kind of that game theme. So this is a really fun tree. And, in typical years, we have a number of games in the collection. So we have checker sets, we have backgammon games, we have books on, many, many books in the collection on bridge and whist and all of those old time games. So it's really fun to set up a game playing vignette in this particular room where we decorate the tree. But for this year, I've let that go by the wayside, because this is actually one of the rooms that visitors just simply view from the doorway. So we're very pleased that we are still able to allow visitors to see all the rooms in our historic house, but because of pandemic safety and social distancing and the regulations of not letting visitors cross paths and keeping that tour route in a single file, single directional line, there are certain rooms that we just simply have to let visitors look at from the doorway this year rather than walking in and getting the full 360 in the round experience. So if we go on to the next slide. Here we have another one of the costumes from the Nutcracker. This is in our 1st floor guest bedroom, and this is from the Waltz of the Flowers costume set. And in addition to this costume, and I will give credit to some colleagues who took all these photographs for me while I was out on vacation last week and pulled this program together from afar. This is only one of 3 costumes that visitors will see in this particular guest bedroom when they tour the museum. And the next slide. So in keeping with, festive holidays, we always have set our dining room table, which is actually the first room that visitors see when they enter our historic house, in, kind of its most festive setting of the year. And in thinking about how I was going to simplify our decorations for a little bit this year, and yet I still wanted to, have a little bit of oomph, the volunteers that we worked with several years ago spent months putting together just amazing fake food. So if you can see in the detail shot, there are just these luscious and scrumptious desserts, cakes and tarts and cookies. They're all made of plaster of Paris and just, the most unappetizing materials, but the way they made them, you just want to dive right in. So I decided that rather than doing what we typically do is like a formal, first course or main entree setting, I thought it would be fun to do just like a dessert extravaganza. And so I just put out all the desserts in the dining room, both on the table, and you might get a glimpse of a dessert there on the sideboard with another one of our signature items from the collection that we get out every year, which is the French Audio silver tea service that was one of the Pope's grand tour purchases when they were taking their grand tour through Europe over the better part of a year during 1888-89, which is the tour that Alfred, where he was, first making his French Impressionist purchases. And there in the background, you can see Marcus Aurelius with his festive holiday headdress. So in addition to the costumes that we have on view amidst our thematic Christmas trees, and we also are very, very pleased that Ballet Theater Company is putting on live Nutcracker performances here at the museum this year. They are doing excerpts on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday afternoons, and we have 2 weekends yet to go before Christmas when they will be doing these performances in our carriage porch, which is our museum, our, 3-sided glassed-in entry porch. If you've been to Hill-stead, you know that is the porch where you enter the museum. And in thinking about how to be social distanced and keep everyone safe and still put on a show, the ballet company sets up on the porch, and we set up a sound system so that we have music inside and out. Visitors are on the outside, very safely distanced, each family grouping or pod from one another, so that they can watch the ballet performance, through the windows. Their speaker is outside. They can hear the music perfectly, and they can watch the ballet company do about a 20-minute series of dance excerpts from the ballet. And then following their live entertainment experience, then we bring them into the museum, give them the QR code where they can access our website, get right to the audio descriptions and written excerpts. And then they are free to wander during a 30-minute time period through the various rooms, safely distanced from each other, reading and listening and looking at the Christmas trees, looking at the dessert extravaganza, and looking and learning about the costumes that are on view. And we came up with this idea, or I should give credit to our executive director, who came up with the idea of a silver bell that gets rung to signal the time increment that each family grouping can then move on from room to room to room over the first floor of the house. And the whole idea was safety first, so that, and as we know, talking and expending, energy and sound is what transmits virus. And even wearing masks, we figured it was better to be silent and let visitors listen and read than to be talking and talking and talking. So we've done our best to maintain business as usual as best we can, although with a completely different spin, and thinking creatively, and still giving visitors as much of what they're used to by coming to see Hill-stead decked out for the holidays, and having some live performance experiences. And top of everybody's list is being able to see the Nutcracker. So I'm really glad to have been able to share this, and just to maybe preempt Rebecca having to ask me, so when are you open? What are your hours? How do visitors visit? We've had to kind of rethink our holiday visitation during this very unusual year. So we are open Thursdays through Sundays from 10 to 4. Thursdays and Fridays, it's business as our new usual. We are doing walk-in tours only. There are no advance registrations, but we give tours on the hour. And as I explained a little bit earlier, you get an orientation, sometimes outside, sometimes in, kind of depending on the weather. And then about a 30-minute tour through the museum, seeing all rooms, first and second floor. On Saturday and Sunday afternoons over the next 2 weekends, reservations are being taken online via our website, and there is a very easy link in the banner across the top of our homepage to access our Nutcracker experience. And then you can buy your tours, buy your tickets for the tour, pick your time slot, pick your day, come to the museum, and then we have staff available to give the orientation and lead you through and make sure that every family grouping is safely spaced and distanced in the museum. We're doing that up through Sunday, December 20th, and then the costumes will actually be on view through Sunday, January 10th. So our decorations will be still available in our new socially distanced, walk-in visitation format during the first couple of weeks of January. So thank you so much. I've been really, really pleased to be a part of this program today.
Melanie, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great having you both speaking about what's going on at your museums. And we did have a few questions from the audience. One of the questions that came up is from a colleague who grew up in Connecticut and said, growing up, I had two strong memories tied to public Christmas displays, both from Hartford. Driving through the Holiday Light Fantasia in Goodwin Park for the first time with my parents and seeing the Festival of Trees at the Wadsworth Athenaeum. Do either of you have childhood memories of Christmas displays that really stand out to you today?
That's a great question. I know, being from Detroit, we would often go down to Greenfield Village, Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village, because they always did a really nice kind of Christmas display. Maybe that's where I got my love of, old-fashioned vintage Christmases. And then also, before I moved to Connecticut, I worked at Cranbrook in Bloomfield Hills. And one of the last years, they have it's a 350-acre campus with art museum, science museum, but they also have a manor house called Cranbrook House. And each year they did holiday tables. And one year I was one of the decorators for one of the holiday tables, where you get a room and you play off the paintings and furniture in the room. And that was really kind of, I guess that's where I got bitten by the holiday decorating bug. And so who knew that those skills would play well with a new job here at the Florence Griswold Museum.
So my childhood memory, I grew up in Illinois, northern Illinois, in the far western suburban region of Chicago. Was farm country back then. But I can remember, I give credit to my mom and dad. They took my brothers and me out of school early, and we took the train into Chicago and went to Marshall Fields and, saw the display windows and had lunch or something in the Oak Room. So I don't really remember that big Christmas tree per se, but I do remember that my brothers and I each got to pick out an ornament from the holiday shop, and I still have the funky little 1970s green and pink elephants that I picked out. I don't put them on my Christmas tree at home, but I see them every year when I get them out. But I will say that every year around January, as I'm putting away the Christmas decorations, I think about, so what should I do new for next year? And so I do have an idea for another thematic tree that if, COVID hadn't upended 2020, might have been on view this year. So I have to figure out, how can I get it going for next year? And I'll give a little teaser. It's some kind of a riff on our collection of Japanese woodblock prints, but I hope maybe for 2021, that'll be on view.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. I was going to ask you, Melanie, having been a visitor many times to Hill-stead with so many gorgeous paintings, how do you choose which paintings to use as your inspiration? Because you've got just such a plethora of amazing pieces there.
Yeah. Well, partly because of where we have placed the trees, it kind of dictated, the proximity. So the Grain Stacks Bright Sunlight was an obvious one because we had frequently had a Christmas tree in that corner for a number of years. And for instance, the game tree started out in that corner, but then I thought, there was one Christmas tree I didn't like so much. So I thought, well, I'm going to redo that one. I'll move the game tree to the other room. So then I need to think about what do I put in the L room now to be next to that Monet? And the Dancers in Pink was just a no-brainer. And there's another really lovely, very early Claude Monet, Fishing Boats at Sea. And so someday I'd love to do something with kind of a nautical theme. And then we have Degas' Jockeys that hangs above the fireplace in the dining room. So I've always got ideas swirling in my head about thematic trees. At some point, I'm going to have a stockpile and I'll have to start rotating them.
That's great. And one thing I really enjoyed hearing from both of you is just how the holidays are an opportunity to bring out some of those objects that might not normally be on display, but you can find a way for it. And especially, David, as you were talking about some of the creative mantles that weren't necessarily just, you use different kinds of ideas to make holiday displays. Do either of you have a really favorite object that you look forward to seeing every holiday season that you bring out?
Well, for us, it's interesting because the palettes come out, we have 224 palettes that come out every year, and we always have them in different configurations because, we put them out on the table and we start hanging them. So those become actually, I really think of it as family heirlooms because some of them we've had now for 17 years, and those ones that we've had from the first year and the ones that come in this year are now juxtaposed. And so you really are looking at all of these Christmas palettes with fresh eyes each time. And it's kind of thrilling every time they come out. And what's really great is when visitors come and they're like, oh, is that a new one? We're like, no, that's been there for 10 years. Or that's a new one. They see them with fresh eyes. And so bringing out the palette collection is kind of a Florence Griswold tradition, I think, which is really delightful. That and that beautiful kind of Victorian sleigh. It only gets on view this time of year, and it's kind of fun to replace a tea box with that sleigh. And then we know the season has started.
I would say from our end, what our tour guides always enjoy seeing is when I get out the French tea service, because it's just at Christmas time that I get that out, and they're always like, "Oh, the Odio tea set." They're so glad to see that again. That's kind of a favorite, an old family friend, so to speak. Something that I have not gotten out for several years, but it's really cute, is this. It's pretty. Its age is showing for sure, but it's this little berry wreath. And this handwritten note, it's not Theodate's handwriting, Theodate Pope Riddle. It's not her handwriting. It may have been a secretary's handwriting, but the note says to be displayed in the rear window of the Cadillac. So apparently Theodate hung a little berry wreath in one of her automobiles. And so we used to get that out. It maybe is getting a little too fragile. We'll have to keep it in the box, but I might think about getting that out next year. So there definitely are some things that we have. And since I mentioned at the beginning, the Pope family were Quakers, so they really did not decorate at all. But Theodate eventually did put up at least one Christmas tree. She hung wreaths in the windows, and we have this very, very large silver ornament that I think it's clearly way too big for a Christmas tree, but it may have been an ornament that would have been hung from a chandelier. And so that's always fun to get out each year too.
That's really interesting about hanging the little wreath, because it kind of goes to how people will hang wreaths on the front of their cars.
Right.
Some
right.
ideas aren't so new as we think, maybe, perhaps.
Right. Everything comes around again.
That's right. Maybe your elephants will be popular.
They'll be fashionable again someday.
That's right. That's right. I was wondering, David, as you were talking about the palettes, because I've been to Florence Griswold during the holidays, and they are just a great thing to see, and the creativity. Do you actively select artists to reach out to say, would you do a palette, or is that something that people can come to you? Because how do you make the selection for artists?
So it's really a combination of that. When we first started, I was using my Rolodex, my contacts, yeah, of course, the awning guys are here. I would go to shows. I would find artists that I like, and I would approach them. Usually, because the museum is a place where en plein air artists come in all the time. People are teaching their classes there. We do have a roster of artists affiliated with the museum. But now that as things moved on, sometimes people give me suggestions. People have friends who are artists. I get their name. I go to their website. I see if it's something that I think would be appropriate. Sometimes people offer up their own services because they just want to be a part of it. And again, I say, well, give me some examples so I know what kind of work we might be getting. But for the most part, it's been working out really well. It is a kind of we do invite them, but sometimes we invite them after they ask to be invited. So it's a combination. So after some people visit the trees, if they're interested in, being part of it, they should just give me send me an email with a link to their work, and we'll see what happens.
And David, just one more question for you. I I know you mentioned that it actually was Miss Griswold's birthday, Christmas Day. Do you have any knowledge of, because I'm assuming that most of the artists came to the artist colony during the summer, but did they actually come during the winter, or was she kind of mostly alone in the house during that time?
Yeah, no, the art colony, flourished primarily each year from, May to October. But we do know that some artists did stay with Miss Florence year round, and we do know that some artists did visit her, for her birthday. And so we know that she wasn't completely alone, and that there were other boarders, maybe not artistic boarders, in the house during the winter months as well. And so we usually do showcase her birthday, sometimes with some special, faux food on the table. When COVID's not happening, we usually have a day-long celebration of Miss Florence's birthday where people get to eat cake and make crafts. All of that has been kind of put on hold this year. So we're kind of celebrating Miss Florence's birthday by having this kind of special event of where Miss Florence, and we will have an actor playing Miss Florence, physically move those awards into place. And then we will share that on social media. So people will get to see Miss Florence in action awarding the first, second, and third prize based on those ballots. And so we're trying just to be a little bit, think creatively because of the situations. But we don't have a lot of specific information about Florence because a trunk of her papers were sold at auction. Diaries, letters, and all those things were kind of lost. So things that would have held some of those clues, just haven't come to the surface yet. But, fingers crossed, collections are found every day.
That's right. You never know. We will keep our fingers crossed. Well, I'd like to thank both David and Melanie for being with us today. It's been really great chatting with you, hearing about the holiday celebrations at your museums, and also just how you're adapting to life during a pandemic and still managing to bring some holiday spirit to Connecticut. So I want to thank you both for being with us. For our audience members, thanks for joining us. Please do make sure to fill out the survey that is listed in the description of the program. We do appreciate your feedback, and we do hope you'll join us for our upcoming programs and continue with the holiday feeling and celebrating what is unique to Connecticut. So coming up in the next couple of weeks, we have programs, our evening conversation, which is December the 17th, Made in Connecticut, and you can hear from Melanie Bourbeau, the creatrix of Wild Moon and the Hartford Flavor Company, as well as artists Virginia Seeley and Jane Penfield. And then join us for a conversation at noon for a history of Connecticut food, our delicious origins, which will be at noon on December the 22nd. So we have everything, things to do, gifts to buy, and food to eat. And I'd like to thank all of you for being with us today, and we hope that you have a nice holiday season.